Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today we are looking at Paul Pope Solo. This is cover dated, even though it's not on the cover, April 2005. I would have bought this in around the time it came out. This was not a huge period of comics collecting for me, but for some reason there was just something a little different and interesting in the artwork on this cover here. So I just randomly bought this issue and thoroughly enjoyed it. Eventually figured out who Paul Pope was a bit more and followed some of his work. I really did enjoy Batman Year 100, which is an awesome miniseries. Might review at some point. But we're going to start with this issue here. So not much more to say. I do believe this is some sort of self-portrait Paul Pope has created where he's added the detail of being punched in the eye, and for some reason he's wearing what seems like an astronaut's costume, but with a furries kind of detailing added in there at the end there. So there's a tail, some gloves, and a furry head. Paul Pope, more of an independent comic artist, but who's created stuff for the mainstream, and this is an example of that here. And just has such a distinctive style that I really enjoy. So we'll talk a little bit about the story, but we'll focus a lot on the visuals too, right? That are kind of clean and anarchic all at the same time. Let's have a look inside. So all work in here, all stories written and illustrated by Paul Pope, right? So it starts off with a short, this is kind of an anthology format, right? So it's a bunch of short stories. So this starts off with a mythological story that he's kind of interpreted in comic book format of the Greek labyrinth, right? And the Minotaur that guards it. So, just beautiful kind of expressive artwork, right? Cartooning, as they call it, I guess you would say, right? I don't feel like he draws a lot of grids and stuff. He just kind of has a natural sense of perspective and uses it, in a kind of a freer way, not, worrying too much about rulers and vanishing points and things. And what I find interesting with Paul Pope is he'll go in for these, extreme close-ups. Here's a good example, but like even here from an extreme angle and stuff, and just give us a snippet of something where, most people might be tempted to draw the whole head. He just pulls in real close into something like that. And, I definitely think done well, that can work like here. You know what I mean? You still understand what's going on. It's the storytelling itself is still clear. Even in the drawing of these tools here, I imagine he's looking possibly at reference for things, when you don't know how to draw something or you've never seen a particular tool, you're going to look up a picture on Google, right? If as an artist, but he's not being a slave to that reference. He's really interpreting it in his own style and giving it that kind of, quirkiness and verve that he's got, that makes, again, his style distinctive, right? So we've got, great scenes of carnage and murder and war here. He's always been very good at drawing the ladies. I will say, generally, his ladies are very well drawn. Different ways of, interpreting texture, in this case, water, right? Everything's pretty convincing. He has kind of a cartoony way of describing blood visually, but which I think works. There's just something about it where, he mixes a certain level of realism in some parts and a certain bit of cartooniness in others. And he's kind of playing between those worlds all the time. Now, this is an interesting story because it is a loving tribute to the master, Jack King Kirby. As you guys know, I'm a huge Kirby fan. OMAC created by Jack Kirby. And what this basically is, and funny enough, I actually read this before I read the original OMAC issue 1, but this is basically a retelling of issue 1 of OMAC. It's basically what it is. It's a retelling of Jack Kirby's original story, just Paul Pope doing it in his style. I guess that story, must have hit him hard too. And, one of the reasons that story is, kind of memorable, or at least even just the cover is because of this image here of this lady's head and legs sticking out, and just how odd of a surrealist kind of image that is. And in the story, what you find out is these are female robots, right? So Jack Kirby had kind of predicted what's probably right around the corner now in 2024. We'll probably see these lady robots and male robots as well pretty soon. But in 1971, 2, maybe 74 at the latest, when Kirby was doing that, no one was even thinking of that, right? And Kirby, I always contend, was a what people call a futurist, someone who could kind of project and see, what would happen in the future and what would be happening. He had a clear view of kind of technology and how it would evolve, even though he was just kind of representing it in comic book form and people thought they were just, funny science fiction superhero stories. I think he just really had a clear view of what was going to happen. In a lot of his comics from the 70s, like another example from OMAC is, he has this one panel that explains this concept of a plane lifting off with a shuttle strapped to its back, getting close to the atmosphere and getting close to space. And then that shuttle kind of just shuttling off the back of the plane into space, right? And we know now that concept is totally viable. I think it's been done already, or, at least we know it's possible for sure. But back then, no one was thinking of that. The mother box in New Gods is basically a cell phone, if you think about it, right? If you know anything about the New Gods, and if you know anything about the mother box. If you don't, well, look it up. So here we go. Definitely, I wouldn't call a swipe an homage of the Jack Kirby OMAC story. Although he's not a slave to all the compositions and the way Jack Kirby did it. I think he's trying to follow kind of a Kirby vibe all around. But, he sometimes, he'll go for a big kind of, money shot of our hero here that I don't think is in the original story necessarily. He does kind of reinterpret this, that classic Kirby scene of mounds and bodies kind of flipped around and combat, right? This is a huge Kirby trope right here. And he's also highlighting some of the creepier aspects of OMAC. OMAC is very weird when you read it, even if it's the fact that it's based in the 70s and stuff. It's just such an odd science fiction, surrealist kind of adventure. These are the good guys, but they wear masks where they're incognito, right? Very creepy. And yeah, the basic story is that they pick this weak, kind of willed guy who will become the ultimate hero with the help of Brother I, who's kind of a technologically advanced satellite that's going to, connect with this gentleman here. What is his name? Blank, Buddy Blank. Even the name, right? So it's going to connect with Buddy Blank and imbue him with superpowers, right? To be kind of the protector of good, basically. So Blank just works in a factory, constantly being yelled at by his boss, right? Being belittled. Definitely a beta male. And of course, his only friend is every once in a while he meets this girl here. Is it Layla? Leela, right? And again, it's the same story as the Jack Kirby. I don't think much has changed, even in the dialogue and stuff. Just maybe the angles and the compositions and, the different angles from which we're seeing the story and the action. So she's his only friend, the only one who treats him right? And what these guys, show up and take her away, and they're here to kind of, tell Blank to beat it, as he says here. Okay, so they bring her back to where she's supposed to be. And as you see, where that is a factory where they make robot ladies. Again, just this image here, kind of disturbing. And in the original Kirby comic, disturbing as well, right? Especially more so since it's from like the early mid-70s. I can only imagine people like I look at it now, I look at OMAC and it's like kind of weird and off-putting in the best ways. I like weird stuff and different stuff and creepy stuff and but someone seeing that in 1974, I can imagine that it would just kind of blow their mind a little bit, right? No one was really conceiving of this stuff back then. Very rarely. Again, Kirby was a futurist. So Blank shows up, comes downstairs, he's looking for Leela. And they think it's pretty funny and they start bullying him, as they do, right? And then they show him a video of this lady robot who's been sent to, I guess, a politician or a powerful person, and she explodes, right? So they're basically spelling out the plan for what these robot ladies are for. Assassinations, political assassinations, right? Corporate assassinations. So Blank won't stand for it, and he's, but there's nothing he can do. He's small and weak. And that's when Brother I decides to imbue him with the powers of OMAC. And here I would say that Paul Pope definitely takes a more gruesome approach to the transformation. There might be a panel or two in the Kirby one, if I remember, where it looks a little grotesque in between, but this is almost like Toxic Avenger level change, right? It just looks like he's burning, right? And what comes out of the fire? OMAC. And what does that stand for? It is an acronym, One Man Army Corps. So if you don't know about OMAC that much, I'll throw in another detail. He was the original kind of idea for OMAC was Captain America in the future. It was originally a Captain America concept that Kirby didn't get to do at Marvel for some reason or another, and just he hung on to it, and eventually he kind of just used it for OMAC. But yeah, Paul Pope, such expressive artwork. Again, I don't think there's ever a ruler in sight when he's drawing, but you know, he doesn't need it. He kind of has that same kind of Kirby talent of warping things and making, you know, things more bombastic and interesting by warping them. And just being kind of freehand about stuff and not worrying about, you know, straight angles too much. And there, he sees Leela in the box. Brother Eye talks to him, explains what's going on. He's there to help him. And we get the classic, because Kirby did it, but, you know, I don't know if you guys are aware with the trope or the concept of cool guys that don't look at explosions. There's a video on YouTube you can check out. If you type those words, we have a classic example of that here. OMAC is so cool that, you know, he doesn't even turn around for all the destruction he's causing back here, you know, to the point of it almost, I would say, almost being nuclear down here. You know, kind of reminiscent of a classic example of that is the Joker in The Dark Knight, Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, when he walks away from the hospital and, you know, with, I guess he's got some sort of radio-controlled bombs and stuff, and he starts blowing up the hospital buildings. He never looks back. He just keeps walking while everything explodes and chaos ensues behind him, right? It's that force of nature kind of trope that they're using there, right? The archetype of, like, you know, none of this can hurt me because I caused this, right? This is, you know, I did this. I control this. It doesn't control me, so there's no reason for me to turn around. This I thought was an interesting story. I don't know where it comes from, if he did it in some other anthology or just quickly kind of, you know, got this ready for this DC work. But the basic story here is just a fun kind of kid story where he talks about, again, he's talking about reading that first issue of OMAC, right? That we just kind of went through an homage of, and seeing ads for all the toys and stuff you could buy back then in the advertisements, and that he ordered, you know, some sort of ghost, right? My very own life-sized polyethylene ghost, which I and only I command, right? So here he's drawing up what his kid kind of mind envisioned his ghost, you know, to be, which understandably, you know, when you would hear about these things or see a quick grainy picture, you might think it's really cool, and that's what you would expect, right? High expectations for this toy. And obviously, you know where this is leading, because it's a familiar story. You know, the kid disappointed by the toy he thought would be really cool. So he finally gets it. When it finally arrived, I learned polyethylene is just a big word for plastic. Its head was just a big balloon. Its armless body was a long plastic sheet you taped to the head. Hey, what kind of ripoff is this? The air kept leaking out of it, and it looked like a big rotten grapefruit. The pallid grimace was spray painted on, and they didn't do a very good job. Man, this isn't scary at all. There was a little plastic string you could attach to the head, and if you pushed it, it kind of looked like the ghost was floating. But the string broke. So he talks about x-ray specs and eventually breaking them open and seeing that they're just a bunch of red feathers within the x-ray specs. So I never knew that. So thank you, Paul Pope, for actually, you know, breaking those open and informing me of what was actually inside of there. I don't quite remember this story that much. I don't think I read it. Interesting artwork once again. Just doesn't interest me that much, to be honest. Doesn't, you know. Not as much as these other stories in here. Teenage Sidekick. So this one is by, obviously by Paul Pope, excuse me, but a little more focused on Robin in this one. So we've got two gangsters pulling up with Robin. You know, clearly he's been beaten up. Throw him to the ground. Robin, obviously an acrobat, trying to get out of their way, but, you know, they crack him one. Love these industrial backgrounds he does here. You know, this is kind of a precursor to what we're going to see, I guess, in Batman Year 100, his interpretation of Batman. Love the kinetic energy, right? When he's fighting here, there's like a manga vibe, European vibe. Paul Pope really just mixes the best, I feel, of kind of American, European, and Japanese comics, right? He has a bit of all three in there, which makes for, you know, it doesn't make for something where I feel he's copying those styles, but he's integrated it and created his own kind of distinctive look, right? So these guys bring Robin to the Joker, and what I like is that, you know, I swear to you, when I was a kid and I would watch the old Adam West Batman TV show, I would look at the Joker and I'm like, there's something weird about his face. I can't put my finger on it, right? And the first time I actually realized, don't forget, like, this is 2005. So the internet's only been around 6-7 years, really, where we have access to it, some regular access to it. So, you know, not everything that we've found out since then or that we know about and that is easy access information now was that easy access information back then. So when I saw this interpretation of the Joker by Paul Pope is when I realized, oh my God. And then I went back to the internet, Googled, you know, Cesar Romero Joker, and realized that that was the issue, is that Cesar Romero, I found out later, did not want to shave his distinctive mustache to be on the Batman show, to be the Joker. So they actually caked on tons of white kind of makeup on top of his mustache so we wouldn't see it. But once you know it's there, you can't unsee it. And, you know, I can't believe it, but yeah, this is the first time looking at the Paul Pope stuff here that I actually realized that that's what was going on with the Joker in that old Adam West show, is that the mustache was just kind of caked and painted over. So thank you, Paul Pope. You know, I do like that he does that, because it makes the Joker, it gives him a kind of grosser aspect, I guess, here. You know, he looks a little more disgusting than funny and clowny. You know, the clown who hasn't taken the time to shave his mustache properly and who's also got kind of the super yellowing teeth, because that was another thing with Cesar Romero. Everyone smoked back then, right? So I assume he smoked and he had fairly yellow teeth. So when he would put the white makeup on his face, you know, there'd be quite a contrast, and you would see that the teeth are clearly not white, but quite yellow, as he's definitely riffing on Cesar Romero pretty much 100% here. So obviously something's going to happen to Robin, right? Joker's going to take care of him. He wants to throw him in this machine, which I think usually is used to kind of break apart, you know, cars and you know, leftover fridges and chunks of metal and stuff, right? So I guess the plan is to throw Robin in there, but somehow, because of his acrobatics and stuff, he's able to dodge it here. Batman shows up, as usual, beats the crap out of everyone, and it's in time to save Robin, right? So there you have it. Just an interesting kind of collection of Paul Pope's more mainstream kind of anthology stories here. And another self-portrait here. Maybe just a sketch of what he was going to do originally, which turned into this cover that you see here. So Paul Pope Solo. There you have it. Great anthology. Great representation of a very distinct artist's work. That is it for Big Baby Reviews today. Please like and subscribe if you're so inclined. I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. Have yourselves a great day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13. 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at kingcomics.ca, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.